As it seems that we are in a time of transition for the Straw Hats, it feels like a good time to bring up again what the best power-ups for all of them would be. Some could use some big power-ups, some could just use some fine-tuning, so let's get into all of the different types that they need and would be great for their character development. Starting with the most recent addition, and arguably still one of the more powerful in the crew, Jinbei. Now, truth be told, I think Jinbei is actually very strong, but we don't get to see his peak performance a lot of the time because he's often out of the water. So the two best upgrades that honestly he could get a hold of would be A, advanced Haki, being able to do things like advanced Conqueror's Haki, as well as having access to consistent supplies of water. Now, truth be told, I might actually think unlimited water might be better, and that might be possible in the near future of One Piece, but I fail to see how there couldn't be a way to maybe make some compression type water device that would give him access to, well, frankly, more liquid at any time he needed it. As they have both Vegapunk and Franky now, that feels like something that should be an easy to work on solution, granting Jinbei some kind of instant access to at least a pond size amount of water that he can manipulate as needed. And speaking of Franky, I think the obvious upgrade for him is simply giving him a bigger and more advanced robot. Personally, I think this will manifest actually in the series as the form of General Franky basically becoming a Vega Force 1 style giant robot that is self-contained due to his Cola power system, possibly combined with some ancient technology from that old lab on Elbaf. And even if it's a fraction as strong as Emmet, it will still be far stronger than most people within the world of One Piece. Circling back around to things that really a lot of these characters could develop within the next arc is that I think Robin needs armament Haki to make her power fully work. I think if she can be so easily injured by outside objects, she is reducing her own effectiveness, and I think the fact she can't do serious damage to a lot of more current opponents also forms a significant issue for her. So I think that giving her, basic armament Haki would be useful, but really advanced armament Haki would be the most useful. Now, honestly, our next two need the same thing, but the way they will manifest will be entirely different. I think that Brook needs to have his Devil Fruit awakened, and honestly, he might be one of the closest to this actually happening, as he seems to be quite in tune with his fruit. He's pushed it very far, and he's kind of got this resolution that seems to be coming up in the Elbaf arc as a person, which are all the key ingredients for becoming an awakened Devil Fruit user. I think that when he awakens it, he'll basically have the ability to revive or bring forward dead spirits that people can remember. And even if those spirits were only at half strength when they're brought back, they would still be some of the most powerful people in One Piece. Think about all the people that even just the Straw Hats alone have known quite personally and picture them coming back to help even though they're dead, and you have a good idea of how this would work. And then I have Chopper, and the reason I think Chopper needs to awaken his Devil Fruit is I am actually of the opinion, agreeing with many others, that he actually has a God Devil Fruit. Specifically the Forest God, which I think will give him some very helpful, unique powers, at least especially in his healing abilities. But yes, awakening all of the God Fruits is undoubtedly a vital component to the end of the series, and Chopper's going to need to awaken his. How this could balance out as upgrades for the crew or even upgrades for their allies could vary. I think it has a lot to do with like genetic manipulation and manipulation of maybe animals as well. And it means a lot more in the world of One Piece to have that than it would in a lot of others. Next up is the character that I do think could use a Devil Fruit, and it might vary as to which one he would actually get if he gets one at all by the end of the series. But not for nothing, I do think the best upgrade that Usopp could have and would have had over the whole series would have undoubtedly been the Brush Fruit. The man's talent as an artist cannot be denied, and his ability to create anything from his imagination would have been a big bonus throughout the whole series, and even now. And if you were allowed non-canon fruits, I think the Grow fruit from Film Z would also work really well for him, allowing him to accelerate the growth and control he has over his pop greens, which fits better even though it's technically not a canon fruit. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit about how this might actually be something he could get a hold of, at least in one form or another by the end of the series. Next up, I think that Sanji really only needs two kind of simple upgrades, and given the fact that I've already mentioned Franky and Vegapunk, they can probably provide him with both of these. One is the fact that I do think Sanji would do greatly with the ability to turn invisible, though given his current speed, that might not be the most important. Invisibility is kind of this weird power where it's really made useful by the person that has it more than it's a useful factor on its own. And Sanji really could put it to a lot better use than he had even when he had his raid suit, and it could be kind of fun seeing somebody as smart as him have access to this tactical option. E-Second is actually another tactical option that could be very, very powerful in his hands, and that is sustained flight. Sanji has his moonwalk ability, but honestly, I think we could do better of giving him actual, like, flight abilities. Whether that is done through rocket shoes or jetpacks or, mechanical wings that are given to him, I think any of these could be great options provided by Vegapunk and Franky. Putting Sanji's speed tied in with that flight ability, if they could work that, would make him extremely powerful. Now we get into our last free upgrades. I'm kind of torn because I think all of these would be important in some form or another, but I honestly think that I'm gonna have to put Zoro in this next tier because Zoro getting a hold of something that Oda said he would give him as a possibility is a dragon fruit, specifically Kaido's dragon fruit. And you might think Zoro doesn't need a fruit, and you're right, he doesn't, because he wouldn't take it. It would be given given to one of his swords. Now, honestly, the full image of Zoro riding a dragon into combat is frankly outstanding and totally something I think most fans would flip out over. But even more importantly, while Zoro can talk to his swords, there seems to be some communication issue as we as the audience don't even usually see that. But giving a dragon fruit to any of his swords would allow them to actually talk back to him, which could be fascinating for his relationship as a swordsman. Something very similar that Mihawk might actually have with Yoru. Oh, and not for nothing, I think Kitetsu II would be more fun to do this with, even though everybody says the Wado Ichimonji, and I do think that would be cool too, but he more than likely will give that sword up by the end of the series. And if you're gonna give him this upgrade, I think Kitetsu II is his and his permanently, and honestly, that sword has the most interesting relationship with him. That leaves us with our number 2, and honestly, this is a character who, in my opinion, should have had this ability more closely to the ability of the series, though not outright at the beginning, and that is Nami being given the Thunder Fruit. I've talked about that a lot on this channel, and honestly, it still holds up. If you give Nami the Thunder Fruit, so many things about One Piece just improve dramatically, especially for her, but for everybody else too. For one thing, it does strike me as odd that the only fruit the Straw Hats do not have access to is a Logia, which automatically is solved by this particular decision. Secondly, we also get rid of the, perpetual debate about where Jinbei, Zoro, and Sanji all fit, because truth be told, the Wings of the Pirate King are not going to be quite clear. It would be Zoro and Nami. Because even in the New World, Logia fruits are still quite powerful. Truth be told, I think Nami should have gotten this fruit after Skypiea, though not necessarily eaten it until after Enies Lobby. Given that we still would have had time for her to start manifesting the confidence and traits that Oda talked about in that SBS that we've seen, but then she also would have gone through quite a bit of training in the post-time skip era to be even more powerful. And honestly, it would have been cool for her to train with Shaki, the way that Luffy trained with Rayleigh, and the way that Zoro trained with Mihawk, which ties back to that family connection theory. And honestly, while I think this would be a great improvement overall, there is something about this that she might get by the end of the series, but again, we'll circle back to that. And that does leave Luffy as our last option, and yeah, let's be honest, it's Gear 6. It's the thing everybody expects him to finally unlock by the end of the series, and honestly, I think that will have something to do with the Mother Flame. Fire that was stolen essentially from Joy Boy and is probably still being used by Emu to secure their power base, will eventually restore Joy Boy's full ability, and I can only imagine what that would actually look like. Now, the thing that I talk about where I said that there is this final upgrade for a couple of these characters like Usopp and Nami is the God Fruits. The God Fruits themselves are essentially still quite a mystery to us. We know that Luffy has the Sun God Fruit, but we know there's at least 3 others. I do believe that Chopper has the Forest God Fruit, and honestly, I think that the other 2 members of the Weak Trio will end up with these fruits by the end as well, with both Usopp ending up with the Earth Fruit and Nami ending up with the Thunder God Fruit, or Storm God, depending on how it's viewed in the translation. My main concern with this is that when these 2 get these options, I'm worried about how far into the series we'll actually be, and if we'll have time to actually make that resonate. But it could be cool taking the 3 weakest characters in One Piece and essentially making them gods, which feels somewhat on brand for this series. But I want you to let me know what you think the best upgrades are for everybody down in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so we can talk about more of One Piece with One Piece fans.